innovation, creativity, and we can be 100% sure that this individual is passionate about business and about creating jobs in Catawba County. Please welcome our Chamber of Commerce President, Danny Hearn.
You know me, I got to do things different. I got to move. It's good to have all of you here. As president of the chamber, sometimes I feel like I got another title. And it's like being president of a cemetery. I got a lot of people underneath me. There ain't nobody listening. Now you're going to listen this morning because I want to talk about something that's barely been mentioned. And it's about free enterprise, but it's about that small person who has a savings account or who has a second mortgage on their home but has a business idea and what are they going to do with it? Or they found a chain or a franchise that they feel is interesting, so they're pooling their dollars and they're trying to figure out where to do with it, and they're going to try to go into business, and who's going to be there to help? And what are we doing to help those people? What is the entrepreneurial spirit of Catawba County like? And I may just be odd about this feeling, but I think they deserve just as much respect and attention to what we can give them that Scott gave to Apple. Because what started Apple started in that little back room, just like our new entrepreneurs are trying to do right here. So I'm trying to give you a challenge this morning that that's what we need to identify and spend some time in working on. And that's what your chamber's doing. But this is a unified effort. This is something that we have all got to help. And you're going to be challenged, and I'm going to challenge you this morning to give me a hand with this. You've got two pieces of paper at your desk or at your table. One is this celebratory invitation to the annual meeting, and the other is a volunteer opportunity to be a part of entrepreneurial development that we're working on that you probably don't know about, that is new but exciting, and I want to tell you about it very briefly. We're going to create more jobs with small business than any other business sector. But how are we going to do that? There's not a Scott Millar for small business. That's my goal. That's what I want to see happen. I'd love it to see through the chamber. I'd love a cooperative spirit between government, business, and education, that we help fund that and we do that. Small business deserves that respect. But what is the entrepreneurial spirit here? It's not just getting them set up. What is it like to go through licensing, permitting, and inspections and getting a certificate of occupancy? What is the image and impression that the citizenry here and people outside of here think about doing business here? The EDC is doing an incredible job. I hope you think we're trying to do a good job. But I'm trying to get you to think smaller a little bit. And the only way that I figured I could do that was to invite my poster child here. And that's Michael Neely. Because to hear me tell you the importance of this means nothing. But to find a fella that came here maybe 4 years ago from California, that I've been telling his story all over this country when I speak to chambers and visit places and do chamber retreats and trying to get chambers interested in doing things like this, as to what he and his wife finding Catawba County and moving to downtown Hickory. And when I went and saw him, he's sitting in an office. Michael, between you and your computer and the baby crib, you didn't have much room to move. But the impact that he has had on the economy and his small business, briefly, I want you to hear so you'll understand what I'm talking about. Michael Neely now is president and owner of Blind Squirrel Digital. That's another story I want to hear about. Where in the world y'all brainstormed that name? But there's a reason for that. Michael, come here a second. Tell them why I'm so proud of you.
I have no idea. We did escape California 3.5 years ago. Thank God we didn't buy a house. My wife wanted to buy a house, but it was just one of those things that I wouldn't let her do it. The value was just not there. I'm originally from Louisiana. My family's in construction in Louisiana, so you know, we're a little thriftier than most people, I would guess. Moving to Catawba County had something to do with my having lived in North Carolina prior to the exodus to California, chasing the buck. I got my graduate degree in Savannah at Savannah College of Art and Design. After that, went down to Florida, worked for EA Sports, which currently is the largest game developer in the world. That's where I met my current business partner, Jeremy Cooper, and he was crazy enough to move down here 1.5 years ago from Syracuse. But we moved here 3.5 years ago, primarily to get a better quality of life. If you've never been to Los Angeles, I would, just for an educational reason, I would encourage you to buy a ticket, rent a car, don't take a taxi, rent a car and drive across LA, and then get back on the plane and come home. That's about all you need to know. But we came to Catawba County to raise our family. We have a 21-month-old daughter. She's amazing. But quite frankly, the cost of doing business here is very, very different than in Los Angeles. It's for the size room that Danny mentioned, where my daughter's crib was for a little while. It costs you about $2,000 a month, and as a small business, just getting started, that's ridiculous. You can't even. You're going backwards before going forwards. So, my wife and I are both entrepreneurs. She has a jewelry design studio in downtown Newton, and our studio is in downtown Newton. And we went from that small room. My background's in visual effects, by the way. I worked over 15 different feature films, as well as Class A game titles. And so I always want to work for myself. I've had a company before. And using these skills, coming back here, it's like we landed in Catawba County, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, okay. Well, I knew first off that our clients weren't going to come from this area initially. And so using the network that I had, and cultivating new business, we, over the last 3.5 years, have done business with companies as far away as Saudi Arabia, Switzerland. I just got back from South America. We're discussing production and animation for a company in Bogota, Colombia. So, you know, we're trying to carve out our little niche. In addition to that, my Blind Squirrel Digital, that is a story, by the way. There's something to that, but not for this venue. But anyway, incidentally, Blind Squirrel is working on 6 internal projects. This week, I wished it had been yesterday, but this week we're releasing our first iPhone game. Now, someone asked me yesterday, actually, you know, what's the relationship between, you know, is it good for you guys to have Apple just down the street? And actually, the only way that it affects our business is quite possibly that our apps might be hosted, you know, just 5 miles away from us. It's not that we take them down there and turn them in the front desk, but for the most part, it is. It's an interesting correlation, and we're happy to have them there. But we have 6 games that are in production. 1 delivers this week. We have a couple more games that are going to be coming out March 1st, and then the cycle goes from there. Now, how do we go from one guy to being able to have a team of developers? We have 4 individuals that work off-site. Nashville, Tennessee, Muncie, Indiana, Charlotte, and Dallas, Texas. That's where these individuals are. Most of them we brought in for a Fox feature film that we did visual effects for here in downtown Newton. That little office was just crammed. We put a desk every square inch up one side and down the other, and it's not much bigger than this table to begin with, which facilitated us to move into a larger space. We now have 2,500 square feet where we are prototyping and building, doing some research and development on augmented reality and multi-touch surface development, as well as the iPhone and iPad development, which we are also doing for third parties. So someone will come to us and say, we have an app idea, can you do it? And so we're in discussions with several companies about doing projects just like that. So that's all I have. It's looking good for us. I mean, when you go from one, we've grown what? 600% in 3.5 years. That's awesome. We're the first to go. Creative people on the downturn. I knew it was coming, before people quit using their credit cards. It's like, okay, business is dropping off. But we're also in a lucky position that when the marketing machines start back up, which is what's starting to occur, we're brought back on. And we're getting more and more phone calls, we're getting more and more response. So if that's any weak signal, I read, Danny sent me a letter. Rick Smyer is a futurist, and he's part of the Future Economy Council. He's spoken with us a few times, and I haven't, since my daughter's been born, I haven't been able to participate. I encourage anyone, if you want to volunteer, that sheet, that's one of the most interesting panels you could be a part of. And Rick Smyer, his letter, well, I had to scale it up. It was 41 pages when I increased the font to where I can see it on my laptop. And I wrote Danny, and I said, I'll see you in the morning, but if I look tired, it's your fault. But I read this letter. It was all about game development. And game development game design and game development is not necessarily just casual games that you're playing on your iPhone or your laptop. It's business to business. It's interactivity. There's something called serious games, which I think is a horrible misnomer, but nonetheless, it has to do with graphical user interfaces used in ways that resemble games, but they're doing very important business. Western Piedmont Community College has a simulation and game development program, which I taught in for a year. My partner and I both taught in for a year. They also have digital effects and animation technology. For us, that's a resource to recruit from. We're looking to that. Our programmer, we have an in-house programmer and we have an intern. Both are coming from Western Piedmont. This area is primed, being a data corridor and how you make those correlations. In some cases, birds of a feather just sort of fly together. They don't necessarily have to, do things, but the fact that the climate for technology to be here makes us feel a lot more comfortable. And by developing these relationships with Western Piedmont and the Appalachian, the Engineering Center, App State, Sid Connor has that. Okay, we talked to them about developing little components for multi-touch surface tables that we're building to hold lasers, because they would require lasers in the corners and blah, blah, blah. But, there's a lot of activity, and if we can sort of change our perspective on what or how big manufacturing needs to be. We've got a room of 6 people, 7 people if you count everyone on Skype. We're not that big, but I think we're going to make a big impact, and I think it's possible for smaller companies to do just that. Thank you.
Computer animations for Pirates of the Caribbean, the Hulk, from his previous work, and forensic 3D animation. He didn't mention that, but because of that creativity, they solved the Phil Spector murder trial out in California a year and a half ago because of that animation. And downtown Newton. So you see why he excites me and why I want you to be involved in this.